everybody, and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Over the last couple weeks, I've been analyzing many different charts, and they're all telling the exact same thing. 2025 is set to be the biggest year of crypto's history, where we have institutional demand paired with retail adoption in a way we just haven't seen, most likely comparative to 2017 cycle. We are now breaking out of the M1 money supply for the first time since that 2017 cycle, and as we're seeing all of this kind of coinciding at the same exact year of our bull run, I got nothing but confidence that anybody buying this dip is going to set themselves up to make a financial fortune. And I wanted to go through, analyze the charts, make sure that you guys know exactly how to play your strategies going into this year, because I promise you, anybody that's positioned and prepared is going to make a financial fortune in 2025. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you find any value in this video, please do me a favor, hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. Without further ado, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Now guys, I am really confident that anybody that is following and investing into crypto this year is going to make a lot of money. And the reason why is all in the charts. Every single chart I'm looking at is telling pretty much the same thing. And with many of your guys' thoughts and concerns over the last couple weeks, messaging me, DMing me, giving some of you guys even calling me on the phone, I've had a lot of people asking me, is this cycle already so much different? Because Bitcoin is so high and the altcoins are all the way down at their base lows in their accumulation, is this something we haven't seen before? And then most importantly, do we need to actually rotate out of the altcoins and move into Bitcoin instead? And I'm going to answer all of these because at the end of the day, guys, I see a lot of very bullish things in the market, and I know a lot of people are super shaken out because of this dip, but I want to go over the prior cycles because I know for a fact that this is no different than anything that we've seen. It's exactly the same as many of the prior cycles, and I think that I have the charts that are going to perfectly answer your concerns. So before we jump into the Bitcoin price and go through that, I wanted to take a look at this chart over in here. This is actually going to be the Bitcoin price against the M1 money supply. For you guys that don't know what the M1 money supply is, it just shows all of the money that can be easily moved into Bitcoin, right? So anybody that has an account, anybody that has a cash savings, any type of investments that they can quickly move around and exchange into another asset, that is ultimately all kind of an index inside of the M1 money supply. Now with the M1 money supply, you guys are going to notice here that the 2017 altcoin peak was actually over in this period. And keep in mind, this is the Bitcoin price. This was the peak of that 2017 cycle. And if you notice, this was the 2019 high right here that we rejected from. This would have been the peak of our last bull market at 65 and 69K. We rejected from there and there. And then even over in here at the 2024 high, when we ran up to all-time highs and we were kind of consolidating them under them for the last 6 months, that was all right here, just continuously rejecting off of this resistance of the M1. However, if you guys notice, just recently with the breakout not only into new all-time highs, but Bitcoin did that and also broke out of resistance against the M1 money supply. So what this shows is anytime Bitcoin is outperforming against the M1, it shows that there's a lot more money that can actually rotate into Bitcoin's price. And it's not a coincidence that whenever Bitcoin is outperforming the M1, the price is actually having our biggest bull markets. 2017 was by far the biggest bull market for the altcoins. We had never seen anything that big. And not only for the altcoins, but Bitcoin as well. Even though the ROI for Bitcoin was a little bit smaller in comparison to its first cycles, obviously it was worth a lot less. We saw a much bigger cycle as a conglomerate of the whole market. So when we're talking about this cycle, we have yet to break out of that 2017 altcoin run. The very peak that we made as a conglomerate with Bitcoin and the altcoins, we've never actually made a new all-time high above that. And I think that the last cycle was so much smaller because we had all of the money printing, right? They hyperinflated the dollar, printing like 50% of the whole entire supply within that first year. And that's why we were unable to actually break out. This cycle, I anticipate, is going to be much bigger because if we're already breaking out on top of this M1 resistance and we're actually reclaiming it as new support, this thing is going to have a new cycle. And I do firmly believe that we're going to see a new all-time high against the M1 for the first time since that 2017 altcoin season. And for you guys that were around, 2017 was by far the biggest and most profitable bull run that we had ever been a part of. You could have made a ton of money with Bitcoin, could have made an infinite amount of money with the altcoins depending on what you bought. But all of the altcoins, it didn't matter how crappy they were, every single one of them, if you look at the all-time low to where they peaked, you could have literally bought anything and made 100x in that 2017 cycle. I do find it likely that where we're at in this bull run is lining up with that 2017 cycle, being a retail adoption cycle. And it makes sense because if we have the institutions here, they've already been buying, they have to have exit liquidity. They're going to end up shilling this to retail. And that's why I think that the M1 is going to continue, or Bitcoin will continue to outperform against the M1. So looking at all of this, I think it perfectly lines up with just how powerful this current bull run is setting up to be. It's going to be much bigger than the last one because we had a global pandemic and hyperinflation. Two negative things for the price appreciation of crypto. This cycle, we have institutional involvement. We have the government that is actually going to be streamlining a lot of this adoption. We have the M1, it's finally breaking out of that. I do believe that this has 2017 written all over it, and we will see a lot of the same parallels. Now, with the 2017 cycle, one of the things I wanted to go through and talk about was actually how similar 2017 and the accumulation before that bull run was to where we're seeing today, across the board on all of the altcoins. Because this was our longest bear market. And I talk a lot about it because as we're seeing this market kind of drag, as Bitcoin's made this new all-time high, we're already sitting here, in the spring of 2025. We only have another 8 or so months left before we're at our cycle top. So I've had a lot of people in my DMs asking me, is this different? Are we way behind the prior cycles? Are we already lagging so much that maybe we should rotate into Bitcoin instead of the altcoins? And I think that 2017 is the perfect kind of cycle to take a look at and compare because the time frames are almost identical. Now, keep in mind that the 2013 cycle top for Bitcoin, this happened because of the Mt. Gox hack. So 80% of the Bitcoin volume was traded on Mt. Gox. When it got hacked, it had the longest bear market that we had ever seen at about 413 days. Keep in mind that if you look at the last 2 bear markets that we've had, every single one of those were exactly 364 days. So because of all of that hack, because the market had to rebalance itself, get a new exchange, all of the new volumes and things, this one took a lot longer in its bear market versus all of the prior cycles. So we had a 413 day long bear market, and then to the point of actually hitting and making a new all-time high was just under 1,200 days. That's very similar to what we see today because if you notice here, keep in mind this is the all-time high, and where we were actually at, still below these all-time highs because we rejected here, and then we rallied up here again, China banned Bitcoin and fudded it, and it dropped again right here. So we had this FUD attack, similar to kind of the inauguration, buy the rumor, sell the news, what we're seeing today. Markets are selling off because Trump got elected, the tariffs, all of this stuff. People are starting to freak out and panic. It's very similar to when China actually banned Bitcoin right as it started to make a new all-time high. They got this big dump again. And if you notice, the very bottom of this dump is March 20th of 2017. So if you guys notice, that's the exact same time frames that we're at today. We are actually on March 14th. So assuming that we're bottomed right where we're at and we've already finished our peak low, we're technically a week ahead of what the 2017 cycle did. Because if we're looking at this from the high to the point of the very bottom before we made that first big run into price discovery, it was just under or a little over 1,200 days. If we're looking at where we're at today, it's really not that different. The only difference is Bitcoin's actually in a new all-time high, right? So maybe we're even more bullish than the 2017 cycle was. But the time frames are the same. If we look at the all-time high to where we're at today, 1,218 days. It's literally no different than that 2017 cycle. In fact, if we're comparing the two, in 2017, Bitcoin was still below these all-time highs, and Bitcoin today is at least up here. It's at least made a breakout and a correction. So when I'm comparing the two, there's all these people saying, man, this cycle's way different. This cycle sucks. This cycle is the worst one we've ever seen. But those people have only been around for maybe 1 or 2 cycles. So when you hear somebody say, this is the worst bull market of all time, those guys haven't even been around for very long, and their opinion is just crap. You shouldn't even listen to them. Because unless you were here trading the fullness of every cycle, and you're willing to break things down just based off the time frames, you wouldn't even know if there was a difference. Because if we're comparing to 2017, most of the 2017 altcoins, as Bitcoin started to make its move to prior all-time highs up in here, they were still way down in their cycle lows. Most altcoins were right here in 2017 by the point Bitcoin finally made a new all-time high. It's not any different than where altcoins were in the last cycle. If we're looking in the last cycle, when Bitcoin first broke out of this 12K level and retested 10.5 as new support, many altcoins were at their all-time lows. Solana was at an 80% correction. Ethereum was all the way back down here at its cycle lows. And everything was just having this massive correction. They were down 80% from their all-time highs. So when we're looking today, and we're seeing, ETH kind of dragging, having this big correction. Many altcoins are near their all-time lows, or at least very close to their accumulations, and yet we're seeing Bitcoin already up into these new all-time highs. It's a little bit different as far as Bitcoin being in price discovery to start, but it is no different if we're talking about the time frames and where altcoins historically have been leading into the final, 250 to 300 days of the bull market. That's always when the altcoins run. It's always in the very end of the cycle, talking the final 250 to 300 days left in that bull market, that the altcoins finally outperform. Because keep in mind, if we're looking at 2017, from March 20th to the point of our cycle top, all of that took place within 266 days. So the idea that this cycle is going to be similar, I mean, they're all kind of similar. Even if we look at the last cycle, you can analyze from the peak of the COVID capitulation, but I would rather analyze from the very bottom of where we broke out of 12K and retested as new support, because that was the real flipping point, right? From that point to 69K was about 434 days. To the 65K top, which was where a lot of altcoins peaked, that was about 217 days. So what we notice here is all of the time it takes to get to the new all-time high, that takes 3 years, right? That takes forever. It takes over 3 years sometimes. To get to the final end of where we see the actual peaks in the price, you're talking 200, 250 days approximately. It's a very short window of time in which the bull market actually goes up. And it's in that final window of the bull market going up that the altcoins outperform. So when we're zooming out and we're looking at every single thing we're seeing today, and I'm looking at Bitcoin today, what is bearish about this exactly? I mean, Bitcoin literally just made a new all-time high. We've been consolidated. This was 65K, this was 69K. When we started to make a new all-time high, we still were kind of rejecting below that same resistance level. Rejection, 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 rejection. Starting to go back up, but still slightly rejected. We've finally broken out of that, and we've retested that as new support. What is bearish about a breakout of like a freaking 1,300-day range? I mean, Bitcoin literally just made a new all-time high. Yes, we had a correction. Yes, it corrected 30%, altcoins got hosed. But Bitcoin is literally a new all-time highs, retesting the prior all-time high of the last cycle as new support. This is the first time in Bitcoin's history we've ever got the chance to buy a retest of the prior all-time high. And instead of people buying it, they're literally panic selling and running away and hiding in the corner like a bunch of little babies. That's what we're seeing today. So I just think it's funny, man. I mean, I've been in the crypto markets. This is my 9th year, working on a decade in the markets. And at this point, I've had the opportunity to make a lot of profit, and I've had the opportunity to lose a lot of profit. And when I'm seeing the market and I'm looking at the charts, there is absolutely nothing currently telling me that we are bearish. Everything in the world is telling me that we're about to set up for another massive run. Whether you're looking at the M1 money supply, a very obvious breakout and retest above all of our last cycle, talking about the first run into price discovery against the M1 since 2017, when 2017 was the biggest bull market. I don't find it coincidental that Trump was also the president during that entire cycle. Trump became president and we got this entire massive bull market. The Democrats were in office and we were inside of this massive correction. And I'm not saying Republican or Democrat, I'm just saying Trump drives markets, and that's what I'm excited about. So no matter what chart we're looking at, we can see every scenario where Bitcoin's about to start flying. And I don't think that that's going to change. What I see is this consolidation looks almost no different than right over in here in this period. Remember when Bitcoin broke out of that $10,500 level in the last cycle, and then we retested that? This consolidation here looks identical to the consolidation Bitcoin's at in this new all-time high, where we had just made that resistance level. We were kind of below that, holding it as resistance, holding it. Finally, we got the breakout and retest, and that's exactly what we're doing right here. And what I find is really interesting is in the last cycle when Bitcoin broke out of the same level, it was not only breaking out of this horizontal resistance level, but it was breaking out of our triangle consolidation. Because Bitcoin was in this massive triangle, right? Let's remove this circle real quick. Bitcoin was in this massive triangle. And so when it broke out, it not only broke out of horizontal resistance and flipped it as support, but it broke out of downtrending resistance and flipped it as support. And during this period, altcoins made a massive lower low. Altcoins were in the toilet. They corrected 80%. Solana was in the crapper. And I can share with you guys the Solana chart and, Hopefully it makes a little bit more sense here, because I just want you guys to be aware that this cycle is truly no different than what we've seen in years past. It really is no different. Even though the altcoins are in the toilet, they are always in the toilet, leading up to the final 250 to 300 days left in the bull market, which is exactly where we're at. You know, when Bitcoin flipped this level, Solana was peaking up here, and it made this correction, and Solana started at the top. And it was once Solana was right here at the bottom of this correction, Bitcoin was already clearing the heck up here at 30K. So this idea that Bitcoin can't, you know, be in price discovery and altcoins have to be right up there with it and they can't be at their cycle lows, it's just silly, because that's where they're always at in the prior cycles. It really isn't any sort of a difference. And when I'm looking at this, you know, if we're talking about where altcoins were in that final little run, you know, Solana was near its cycle low right here. So we only had this peak and then this peak, and Solana did all of this in that one big move. And that's just Solana. You know, Phantom is another one that I bought early that did the same exact type of stuff. We can look at Phantom. They all ran at the same time, and they all did nothing leading into that run, right? Right here. Phantom Network, you have this big run, Bitcoin breaks out, and then it pulls back. Altcoins get hosed. Bitcoin pulls back like 10%, and Phantom Network pulls back 76%, 78%, right? So it's no different. We always have that final shakeout at the breakout. Altcoins get absolutely smashed, and then Bitcoin makes that run into price discovery, and whatever altcoins are going to outperform, they literally do this. Like, what? There's nothing to overcomplicate here. The altcoins do nothing until Bitcoin makes its run into price discovery. Bitcoin made its run into price discovery, but it wasn't enough quite yet. We had to pull back. We're getting that retest here. When this thing bottoms and starts that next run, I have truly nothing but confidence that all of these altcoins we're looking at today are going to do the Solanas. They're going to do the Ethereums. They're going to do this type of a move, because this is what they do literally every cycle. Go back to 2017 and look at all of the 2016 and 17 altcoins. They went sideways and down until Bitcoin went into new all-time highs, and then they outperformed Bitcoin. If you look at the last cycle, you know, Bitcoin outperformed into new all-time highs. Many of those altcoins were near their all-time lows. For example, Phantom Networks, it had an 80% correction as Bitcoin was already starting to run into price discovery. And then once that rotation takes place, you know, over the course of like 250 to 300 days, you get the massive amount of outperformance. So my entire premise of this video was to help answer, simplify, you know, ultimately just try and get you guys to focus in on what's important, because I see so much FUD. I see so many big analysts saying why we're bearish, why we've topped. And at the end of the day, these are people that are always flipping biases. And because of that, if you're a little bit emotional in the short term, you see someone you like that you look at their charts and they start getting bearish, it's really easy to start panic selling your positions and then just move into something that's really going to cost you even more long-term profit as well. Right now is no different than what I've seen in years past. I'm currently buying this dip. I've been buying this dip. I am loading in with everything I possibly can right now, because this is the final dip that we're going to have before the big altcoin run happens. And I just want you guys to be aware of all of those things. If you're unaware of that now, you're going to miss out entirely. I see a huge opportunity for life-changing wealth in the same ways that I've been able to do it every cycle up to this point. And I know that you guys can do the same. The issue is we always get in our own ways, we complicate the strategy, and we end up costing ourselves long-term profit. Anybody that sticks to the long-term goal, holds, and is willing to just DCA throughout this dip, knowing that we got to take profits at the end of this year, I promise you, you're going to do much better than everyone else in the market. You're going to set yourselves up to make a financial fortune by the end of this year. So guys, if you did find value in this video, please do me a favor. Hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. Drop your comments about what you think about this cycle. How do you think about my charts? What do you think about them? Do you think that it's lining up with what I'm saying? Or are you guys actually thinking that we are at some sort of a cycle top? Drop the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives. For anybody that wants to see what I'm investing in over these cycles, any altcoins we're buying in this dip, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up on my website. Lifetime access to all of the things that I'm going to be buying, selling, trading over the course of this cycle and the following cycle. So if you guys want to be able to get access, see what I'm buying and selling, links are in the description. With that being said, I love you. I respect you. Can't wait to see what this cycle does. Hold on, guys. I'm telling you, we've almost made it. We only have a few more months left to go before this thing is really going to take off. So stick to it. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.